Hi everyone, thank you for joining today's webinar. We're going to give it a minute just to let everyone get in and then we'll get started. Hi to everyone just joining. We're going to give it a minute just to let everyone come in and then we'll get started. Fab, it's 12:02, so I think we can jump straight in. So thank you for joining us for our very last Arts Impact webinar. I'm Bethany, I'm Marketing Comms Manager here, and on the call with me I have Sahil from the Big Give team and Anna from the NPAC team. So just before we go through today's slides, I'm sure you all already know this already, but there's a chat box at the bottom of your Zoom panel. You can click on that, set that to everyone, and introduce yourselves or share any ideas and thoughts throughout the session. There's also a Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom panel. Please do use this to ask any questions. This webinar is for you to ask questions, so please don't be afraid. No questions silly. We want to answer as many as we can through this webinar. There's also an option to raise hands, I believe, for this webinar. So if you'd like to ask us your question directly, rather than typing in the Q&A box, you're very welcome to. If for any reason you need to enable captions, there should be 3 buttons with a more label, and you'll be able to click on that to enable live transcripts for this webinar. And as always, the webinar is being recorded, so you'll be able to watch it on our YouTube session and share it with colleagues afterwards. So just going into a few details before we jump into the Q&A portion. We are now fully in the marketing phase of the campaign, which is the perfect time for you to start planning and prepping if you haven't already started to do so. We have a Trello board that's available for charities. You can access the link through the resources section of the portal, but my colleague Sahil will put it in the chat as well. And this is really handy. It has lots of logos, templates, key message guides, and everything for you to get started. So I definitely encourage you to have a look at that if you haven't already. There's also another column that talks about kind of the Big Give marketing that we're doing as well. So if you want to kind of keep up to date on our plans, this is a good tool for you to use as well. So I definitely encourage you to look at that. And just an FYI here that some of the social templates that we have on this Trello board do directly link to Canva, which allows you to edit directly and then make them within your colors and branding or use your pictures and so on. So if you don't have Canva, Canva Pro is free for nonprofits. I would definitely encourage you to have a Canva account anyway. But you can then create a free account, download the templates, and then edit them on whatever platform works for you. But just to let you know, that resource is available. Second really useful tool that you can use is our case studies. If you visit Big Give's website, under the resources section, you'll be able to find the case studies link. This is just a really great way to get some valuable insights from other charities who have taken part in Big Give before. We had some new case studies uploaded on the website yesterday because we just announced our recent awards for our Christmas Challenge campaign. And a lot of the charities that won awards this year were charities that were under £500,000 in income. So really useful, especially for smaller charities, thinking about, oh, how am I going to do this campaign? There's so many useful tips and tricks in there. So I definitely encourage you to have a look if you haven't already. Third thing is that peer-to-peer learning is always really valuable, and obviously Big Give can give you as much advice as we can, and obviously NPAC has given, or Anna's given, lots of great advice in the webinars this week, but also talking to other charities is really useful. We do have a Facebook group available for charities to sign up to, and it's a great way to ask questions or connect with other charities if you haven't had a chance to in the webinars. So I definitely encourage you to have a look at that if you want to. It could also be a really great way to kind of get quick and easy answers during the campaign week itself if you don't want to wait for Big Give to reply to an email. Although, of course, we aim to always respond to emails very, very quickly. But yeah, that's another great option for you. And finally, the most important thing on this list is to be aware of the campaign rules. It's really important that you know how the campaign works. And if you still have some questions or you're still confused, obviously today's session is a chance for you to ask those questions. But I would definitely make sure that you've read up on all of the campaign rules and everything, so you're not caught unawares during the campaign week. I've put some really important ones here just to remind yourselves of. So firstly, I'm sure all of you have already accepted your offer, but if you haven't accepted your offer, you will need to do so in order to take part in the campaign. Seems really obvious, but I'm sure it can be easily missed. So please do go onto the charity portal and accept your offer if you haven't already. Another important thing is that all of the donations that you raise during the campaign week have to be made via Big Give in order to be matched. So really important that you're directing any donations to your Big Give campaign during that campaign week. The donate button will appear on that page at 12 p.m. midday on the 19th and will disappear at midday on the 26th. We often get some charities messaging to say, oh, my donor's here and it's 12:20, can they still donate? And no, they wouldn't be able to donate at that time. So it's really important that you make sure your donors are aware of that cutoff date on the 26th, so they're not caught unawares or are disappointed. If you're wondering, where's my campaign page? I don't have access to it. If you go to your into your charity portal and go to Big Give campaigns, you'll be able to access your Arts at Impact campaign page there. There should be a button that says like view campaign page or something, and you'll be able to be taken to your campaign page. If you click on that button and you're just taken to the Big Give homepage, that means that your bank details either haven't been uploaded yet or they haven't been approved by Big Give. So definitely double check to make sure both of those things have been done, and then you'll be able to access the page. If you can't access the page, great news, everything's fine with your campaign. You'll be able to share that URL link immediately, whenever you want to. That is the exact URL that you'll have for your campaign throughout the entire time, and the donate button will appear on that URL when the campaign's live. And with the campaign page, you can edit all the media and change all the pictures, videos, etc. whenever you want to. And sure, we've mentioned this already, but it's not an all or nothing campaign. Anything you raise up to your match funded amount will be matched. So it's not a case of I've only raised half of my target, I'm not going to get anything. That's not the case at all. You will receive everything you raise plus that amount matched. And where that I'm talking a lot, so very final thing from me is that really to be aware of these payment options. We accept debit, credit card, Google Pay, Apple Pay, etc. But we can't match any offline donations that you receive. So something to consider, especially if you're doing kind of separate fundraising or events during the week. I think I lied about the last thing from me. This is the last slide from me. As I mentioned, Big Give do our own kind of marketing and media around the campaign, and we do that in order to raise awareness about the great doubling donations opportunity that the campaign presents. And as part of that, we work with our retained PR agency, Soho Communications, and we aim to kind of spotlight individual charities as well as raise awareness about the campaign in general. So some of you may have received an email from me if you have celebrity ambassadors. We'd love to hear from you to see if essentially how we can work together. We've had lots of coverage in Sky News and Good Morning Britain, and we have a partnership with Helen Magazine that's interested in covering the campaign. So if you do have potentially any supporters that you might think of interest, please do get in touch and we would love to hear from you. But without further ado, I'm going to open the floor to ask your questions.
Yeah, and as Beth said, you get most out of this webinar depending on the questions you ask. If there are no questions, we'll have to wrap up early. So yeah, feel free to put them in the chat, or you can raise your hand if you want to speak to us directly and maybe break up just us speaking. Any questions at all? Otherwise, we will try and... Yes, Anna?
Well, obviously, I don't have a question. I'm supposed to be answering them, but
Yeah.
I just wonder if it's helpful to recap some of the questions that came up earlier in the week.
Yeah.
I don't know whether this is an apologies because I haven't got the sort of memory that can remember the list of names from the two seminars earlier in the week. But there were a couple of questions that came up that is worth reiterating. So one arts organisation, I think it was on Monday, asked what the 3 top tips were for running a successful Big Give campaign. And we spent then a little bit of time talking about the really importance of having a clear ask and case for support. We talked about the importance of having a properly sort of laid out marketing campaign, what the comms are, and we talked about the importance of planning. So I just thought it was worth just setting the scene in that context. The other sort of questions we had sort of various practical ones, which were to do with using the site, but actually Bethany's covered that very well this morning. I see something's popped up in the chat. You see it, so you have to flannel a bit. I should have been a radio presenter. What's the first question that's appeared?
Oh, it's no question. I think it's just introductions. So yeah, still feel free to introduce yourselves to others. But oh yes, here we go. Rosie has asked, can you give them a bit more information about how BACS payments transfer options works? Yeah, I can take this one. So actually, we sent out that email yesterday about how the BACS system works. But essentially, so please do have a read of that, and it directs to a link on our website, which again you can share with donors who would be interested in using that system. But for this call, the way that it works is basically donors will need to set up a donor account with us. And once they set up a donor account, they'll be asked to fill in a short form just asking how much money they want to donate to a charity. Once they complete that form, they will then be presented with a set of unique bank details. These bank details are unique to their donor account. No other donor has access to them. They need to transfer the amount that they want to donate to those bank details. Once we have received those funds, we will then credit their donor account with what we call donation funds. Think of it like credits or vouchers. And then when the campaign is open, they need to visit your campaign page and they'll be prompted at the top to log into their donor account. And then they'll see that how much of their balance is available to donate to the charity. And they proceed through the donation form and they won't be asked to put in their card details because the donation will be taken from that balance that we've credited their account. So that's how the system works. But yeah, feel free to contact us if you have any further questions about it.
We had oh, go ahead, Anna.
There seems to be a follow-up one, which is why is the 500 quid set as the target amount? I'm presuming just because of admin costs.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, at the moment it's £500 minimum amount for the BACS to use the BACS option.
And just to follow up on that, Valerie, if you did have someone who doesn't have a card that wants to donate under 500,000, £500, there is the potential option of, I think we mentioned previously, potentially having like a trustee or an employee of the charity make a personal donation on behalf of that donor from their personal card, or potentially someone in that company's network, like an employee, might be able to make the donation from their card. So other things to potentially consider there, but you'd have to obviously manage that with your finance team if you're doing it internally, or the company might have to kind of manage that if they're getting like the CEO to make the donation themselves. But potentially another option to consider if you do want to make use of that match funding offer.
And so yeah, Valerie was asking, so they should donate directly to us in the week. So if you are if someone is donating on behalf, or if like a trustee is donating on behalf of a donor, I would probably discuss with your finance team about how best to manage that. So eventually the donation has to come through our website. So that would be like the trustee donating on behalf of the donor. So discuss with your finance team if the donor, first of all, pays the funds to the charity and then the trustee donates and then the charity pays and reimburses them, or how best to manage it is best to talk with your finance team. Anna, can you remember any of the other points, any other questions that were raised during the week that you want to cover?
Well, I was just thinking that we could touch on a couple of examples that we are familiar with of what arts organisations are planning to do to maximise this opportunity. And we can also summarise a case study that we had at Wednesday's webinar. So Wednesday's webinar was a case study of the Poker Theatre, which is a children's theatre in southwest London. And they spoke about a campaign that they ran, which had three separate parts to it. One was they had a big event which they sold tickets for, and they used to publicise the Big Give campaign that was coming up a few weeks subsequently. One was they managed to secure some donations, and so they ran an auction contemporaneously with the Big Give campaign. And when they got to the end of the Big Give campaign week, they invited not only the auction winners to donate the amounts for the prizes through the Big Give platform, but they also invited the runners-up, the people who had bid but have been unsuccessful, to donate through the platform as well, which I thought was a really interesting way of raising money. And then the third thing they talked about was the sort of marketing and comms that they ran around the campaign, which was all about building up gradually. There was an interesting discussion around whether they were targeting their existing donors or whether they were trying to get new people in. For some of you on this call, you'll be seasoned fundraisers and you'll have all kinds of ideas as to how to do this. For others, this will be a relatively new area of work. So they were talking about the fact that as a theatre, they'd use the audience as a sort of key target group to try and convert those audience members into donors. And then they talked about a sort of PR comms MailChimp type campaign that ran up. They also had some point of sale emails, so if people were buying tickets for the theatre, they would include a sort of PS, did you know that if you made a donation this time it will be doubled, so on and so forth. Bethany's just very helpfully put a link to a case study of the Polka Theatre in there, but I thought actually, even though the auction is not something that we can all just whip up between now and the 19th of March, nonetheless, the idea of having some kind of prize running alongside, I mean, it occurred to me that you could have everybody who gives to the Big Give campaign could be put into a raffle and they could be given 2 tickets for whatever your next event is, or maybe you could source a prize from one of your trustees, whatever. I thought that was a very interesting way of motivating people to donate, not only by the match funding, but also by the potential of winning a prize. So I just mention that case study as something that people on this call might find helpful. Another example that I can share with you is a small music festival that I'm involved with. And what they are going to do is they're going to use the Big Give opportunity twofold. First of all, to try and convert some of their audience members and mailing list lurkers, let's call them, convert those people into friends and patrons. So the idea is to use their existing friends and patrons tiered benefit scheme. We talked a bit about those at the webinar on Monday, but to use the motivation, the benefits that go with those programs as an added incentive to give into the charity during that Big Give week. And some of you will already have established tiered giving programs, others will not. We talked about the fact that it might include priority booking, it might include access to artists. I did a bit of a mantra about how much I absolutely hate comps. I like them as a person who goes to arts events, but I hate giving them away to people who can afford to buy tickets. So we had a bit of a discussion about not giving away too many benefits with these tiered giving programs. And indeed, Katie from the Poker Theatre reminded us that if you do some kind of prize raffle or auction, those benefits, i.e. the prizes, render those donations not ineligible for gift aid. So there was a bit of a teaching on Monday's webinar about the gift aid rules and how they work. And then on Wednesday we heard an example of when they do and don't apply. But just going back to this festival for a minute, that one plank is to try and get people on the mailing list and the audience list to convert to friends and patrons using not only the matching but also the benefits of those schemes as incentives. The second plank is to try and get existing donors to give more. This campaign is all about getting new philanthropy for arts and culture. I keep saying no cheating. I mean, of course, we can't stop people cheating. But, you know, I think we would be all cheating ourselves if, as an arts organisation, we just found one person who was willing to put the entire amount of the grant in and then just get that matched. It's be a complete missed opportunity to my mind. So what that organisation is doing is it's trying to get new donors in, but also trying to get others to go up the giving ladder. And I think that incremental philanthropy is absolutely not cheating. If someone's currently giving you 100 quid and they give you an extra 100 in the Big Give, I'm all for that. Absolutely fantastic result. The third thing I just wanted to mention is the idea of an underwriting. It can be the third rail of discussions talking about whether trustees give money to organisations or not. I wish I could see you all and we could have a show of hands that asked whether your trustees are currently donors to the organisations or not. I think it'd be quite an interesting outcome. I've done, as in the context of New Philanthropy for Arts and Culture, we're trying to build networks of philanthropists across the country, and we've had some very interesting stakeholder meetings in all kinds of places. And just to name a few: Stoke-on-Trent, Sunderland, Middlesbrough, Birmingham, Hastings. I've probably forgotten some, Medway, and you get very different views as you travel around the country as to whether trustees should be asked to give or not. I think for the purpose of, even if it's not appropriate for your organisation currently, and I would challenge that view anyway, but even if it's not, this fund gives you the ideal opportunity to ask your trustees to help, either by giving if they haven't previously given, or by underwriting the campaign. So one of the trustees of the music festival that I just mentioned has put forward a £500 underwriting, such that if as we get to the end of the Big Give challenge, if that festival hasn't hit its target, then the trustee will put in an incremental £500 to trigger that additional matching. So I just mentioned that as an idea because I thought that that was a very imaginative solution to a campaign that they've not run before.
Just before we, I think, Beth, you have some questions for us. I just want to make an anecdotal point, which was, I know, Anna, you're talking about not sort of cheating and having one donor come in and swoop up all the funds. I do remember in our Green campaign a few years ago where a charity had a £10,000 of match funds. And they were talking to a prospective new donor just separately outside of the campaign about supporting them. And that donor actually saw the Green Match Fund campaign and came in and gave them the whole donated the whole £10,000. So if you're already having conversations with prospective new donors, this is possibly a good opportunity to maybe get them over the line. But sorry.
Far be it for me to say that £10,000 is a bad outcome. I mean, that's a bad outcome. I just, I know your point. Also in the context of perhaps a smaller arts organisation who's newer to the topic of individual giving, one of the great things about the Big Give platform is it can take a donation from £5 to 50 grand. You can put any amount of money on there, can't you? So if you are aiming for, there are charities of different sizes participating in this campaign, and we've got some who are trying to target £1,000, some 2.5, some 5, some 10, and a very small number of £20,000 grants for charities whose turnover was over £1 million. And there were not very many of those, and we were massively oversubscribed. So most of those got pared down in the process because we had more funding requests than we were able to be funded. But if you're trying to get to £1,000, well, actually, why not? Why not get 20 people to give you 50 quid, and then you've got those 20 people on the books. Just before I come to Tulsi's question, one of the other questions was, will the charities automatically be able to have access to the contact details of the donors that give to them through the Big Give? And my understanding is, and Sahil and Bethy will correct me if I'm wrong, is it sort of come down to GDPR preferences. So as donors give to your charity, they'll be asked to opt in to hear from the Big Give from you as a charity, and then thirdly to it was the third one. I think it was going to be from NPAC, wasn't it? So they will be given that, and of course, if they opt in to hear from you, you'll be given their details. Have I got that right? I should work for the Big Give. I don't. Have I got that right?
Yes, you have. Great. I'll see some questions that have come in. We'll start with Tulsi's question. So what would the ideal timeline for the next 6 weeks running up to the Big Give week to maximize donations? So I'm happy to kind of start from kind of a marketing perspective. Obviously, it's different for every charity, so don't kind of take this as the way to do it. But these kind of this kind of period of 2 weeks, I'm mainly focused on prepping. So this is the time where I start to prep all of our Big Give social media communications. I might have all of the posts kind of ready. I'm going to be starting to prep all of our donor emails that are going out and start to think about all of the different reach out that I'm doing to like networks and getting that all ready. So this is a great time, if you haven't started already, to really just prep all of those comms so that the next 4 weeks you're just ready to go and just to roll out things as they come. So then from that kind of a 4-week countdown for us, we're going to be releasing a press release. So potentially for you, that could be a press release to local newspapers in your area. But I would encourage potentially holding off that press release till closer to the campaign week. It could then be maybe you have an email or regular monthly newsletter that goes out. You might want to start teasing the campaign in there. So something to think about, that kind of 4-week countdown, and maybe also reaching out to some of your known supporters, your really high level donors, and thinking about, just to let you know, we're taking part in this, and give them some details about the project. There might not be a direct donation ask at this stage, but kind of making sure people are aware of what's coming up. And then as we get closer to the campaign week, more in that 2 weeks to 1 week to go, this is where we start to release, Big Give starts to release our campaign video. This is where our first donor email goes out to people just to say, save the date, this is what's coming up next. This is when we really start to ramp up our posts on social media. So this is where you might start to be more public about what's going on. You might have your Big Give landing page on your website ready and letting people know that this is coming up. So you might be a bit more, a lot more public facing comms as you get closer to the week. Then of course, with the kind of couple days to go, this is where you might start sending out your press release to local news networks and everything in your area to let them know that, on the date of the campaign, we want you to release this to share about what's going on far and wide. And then obviously the week of the campaign is kind of full force. All of your social media posts are going out. All of your news press releases are going out. Any videos that you have are going out, any direct comms to donors, whether that's through email or letters, whatever, that's all going out to really get people directed to that campaign page. This is when your website, the donate link might be changed to direct people straight to Big Give and get people funneled in that way. So really starting to just think about a slow ramp up of comms as we get closer to the week. Obviously, this is different for every charity, so you have to think about what comms you already have going out and how it could work for you. But yeah, just hopefully that is somewhat helpful. And I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
I don't know how to improve on that. I think it was excellent summary of how to market a campaign. I suppose the overlay on all of that is to make sure that you've got a really clear ask and a really clear case for support, and you need to be consistent across the various communication channels. I mean, this campaign is all about social impact and why, what the role the arts plays. And I was just hearing this morning, although I didn't hear the article myself, that even the Today programme this morning was covering the benefit of the arts more widely in society. So it's a very live, real topic. So the extent to which you can make the case to potential new donors who are motivated by the social impact of your work over and above those who love the quality of the art that you are delivering, I think is a really important part of this campaign. Any other questions? Does that answer the question? Whoever asked it, the 6-week, hopefully, brilliant.
There's a question from Gaynor who's asking, can you send out MailChimp emails to e-newsletter subscribers with details of the campaign, or would that be deemed as sending an unsolicited email?
I think that people who have opted into your mailing list have a legitimate interest in hearing what you're up to. That's my view. And I did once go to a seminar on GDPR, and there was a person there from the fundraising regulator, and we were talking about this. And this person used the example of a furniture shop, and they were saying that if you had previously sold somebody a table, you would have a legitimate interest in trying to sell them a chair. Made me laugh a bit, because don't people normally buy tables and chairs together? Anyhow, I asked them specifically whether, in their analogy, a table and chair could be replaced by a ticket and opportunity to donate, and they said yes. If you're just on the mailing list, I suppose have you ever bought anything would be a question that you'd ask yourself. But I think if people sign into a mailing list, that suggests that they're interested in hearing from the organisation, particularly as in the era of GDPR, people have to opt in now. So it's not as if you have randomly populated your mailing list with people that you would like to bombard with offers. They have chosen to hear from you, and therefore I think it's a legitimate interest point that you can tell them about this.
And on that point you made about like have they bought a ticket before or something like that, is when you are sending out your emails, it's really good to just segment your audiences. So it could be on the levels of giving, or it could be on who's a regular giver versus who's a lapsed donor versus who's never given before, and being more targeted in your messaging to your database and being a bit more sort of canny about it. So that's something to consider as well.
I have
We
a
have
question from Rosie in the chat. It says, on the contact details point, if someone does not opt into hearing from the charity, does that mean we have no way of thanking a donor?
So we send donors a confirmation email of their donation, and there is also an option for charities to customize a thank you message in that email. So if you go to your campaign dashboard and click on edit media, you can customize that thank you message, which is sent to all donors that donate to your charity. Yeah, and if someone has not opted in to hearing from you, you'll be able to see their donor name and how much they've given to you in the donation report, but you just won't be able to see their email address. And yeah, you can only add the email addresses that are shown in your donor report to your mailing list.
I've got a thought on that actually. So I have a feeling that when charities applied to be part of the fund, they already included a customised thank you in the application process. I feel
Yeah,
like
we did ask that.
one of the questions. Is it possible to edit that such that you can put a link in? So
you can put a link in, but it won't be hyperlinked. So it'll just be like text. It won't be.
Okay. So you could say thank you very much, and then if they happen to hear more about the charity, please visit our website, and then you could put a link to wherever they sign up to your newsletter. Just another opportunity to catch them, just in case they accidentally forgot to say that they'd like to hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a question from Jenny, which maybe Anna, you can pick up. Have you seen good examples of charities utilizing support from companies or trusts and foundations within sort of their campaigning? What has been effective? Yeah, sorry.
Well, there's two parts of the answer, I think. One is, to whom are you going to appeal in this process? And you want to, I suppose, if you're in the process of applying to trusts and foundations for specific projects, you wouldn't want to jeopardize those applications by bombarding those funders with this campaign. On the other hand, if you have got relationships with trusts and foundations who you think are minded to support this campaign, I think that would be really no problem at all to let them know that you're doing this. The challenge, of course, is that trusts and foundations and corporates may or may not have a kind of credit card handily available to donate via the Big Give website. And then you're back into the first question that Sahil already answered, which was to do with the 500 quid limit, setting up an account, and or them giving it to an individual and that individual putting it on their credit card. So I think it's a sort of, can you include them? Yes. How do they do it? Slightly more complicated.
Also, the other thing is, if, for example, with companies, is how do you want to engage with them? So obviously donations, but also you want them to help like market your campaign. So we know from charities in our other campaigns, what they've sent out to their corporate supporters is like a sort of marketing pack, which includes like ideas of like bake sales they could run, some assets they can use and things like that. If you're asking companies to support you on like social media and things like that, it's really good if you create template posts that they can use in their emails and social media to make it as easy as possible for them to share on in their channels. So donation is one way, but also like how do you want them to help maybe the marketing aspect of it, of the campaign?
There's another idea that I've just thought of as well, which is that to the extent that you have got institutional supporters, maybe small corporates or whatever, often often companies have prepared charities which they direct their employees towards. I mean, the most obvious one is Tesco's. They have a charity of the year, don't you? So every time you check out of Tesco's, it invites you to put something in for a particular cause. But even small companies quite often do that. And it may be possible to get your corporate supporters to market the opportunity or share the opportunity with their staff. And as I said, it all adds up, a tenner here and a tenner there. So that might be something to explore with your existing corporate donors.
And we have seen that in the past, where companies are directed like their employees to donate to a campaign, and they just said, make sure you use your company email when you sign up to comms from the charity, so the charity can see your email in the donation report. So then you can say exactly, essentially the company's impact. So you can be like, you've raised £1,000 for your employees. We have a record all of this, and then the company can shout about it as well. Because obviously, if they're a company, they most likely want to, showcase their involvement publicly. So it's a good way to kind of say we can give you your impact back as well if you do this.
And just the other way that you can capture that information is that the employees that donate, they could, if they forget to opt in, they could share the donation confirmation email with their employers as well. Any more? I don't think we have any further questions.
I suppose, well,
yeah.
I was just going to say, if there are no further questions, my sort of concluding remarks would be that from the point of view of New Philanthropy for Arts and Culture, we're just absolutely delighted that charities are participating in this sort of tailored match fund for arts and cultural organisations, and just would like to, thank you all very much for participating, and also wish you the very best for your campaign. What we would like to see is that all the charities hit their targets, because we can then make the case to funders for subsequent funds targeted at arts and culture. This is viewed very much as a pilot, so I hope we can collectively make it a success.
And I think Samantha actually raised her hand, so I'm going to allow her to talk. Hi, Samantha. You may need to unmute.
Hello.
Hi, Samantha. Do you have a question?
Not so much a question as realizing I have to come up with a plan of action, because I am a one-man band here in a tiny little charity in a rural community, and having recently written a dissertation for my master's and come to the conclusion that rural just doesn't have the reach that city-centric or towns do, I just need to find my big voice.
I mean, I think it can be a bit daunting when you find your big voice for the first time, but I mean, I don't know to what extent you currently raise money from individuals, or to what extent you have a mailing list of people who come to your productions, but I would really build on the existing work that you do in terms of comms and messaging, and as a registered charity, you will have a board of trustees. This is the moment to use them and their networks to help. And we can use some of the examples we discussed earlier on around underwriting and etc. So I think it's about sort of getting a bit confident and not being alarmed by this. Some people go to an enormously elaborate design. I mean, the Polka Theatre, maybe don't read that case study because it might put you off, because it's kind of got an auction and an event, and they had a huge team, 5 marketeers and 4 fundraisers or something, so quite a big team, which you obviously don't have. But do absolutely use the opportunity to talk to all your stakeholders about this opportunity. Does that help? I mean, you obviously will have done some of the heavy lifting already to be able to be eligible to get one of these grants awarded, because you'll have lots of material on the application that you submitted to the Big Give. So start from that. Don't feel you have to reinvent the wheel, and don't be anxious about repeating yourself. The idea is to get the message across. Someone told me once, a very experienced arts philanthropist who'd done a lot of fundraising for a charity which works with adults with disabilities, and he said that the way that he raises money is he makes sure that people hear about the opportunity 3 or 4 times, because he's heard that people need to hear about it 3 or 4 times in order to donate, and then he views his role as making sure that they do indeed hear about it 3 or 4 times. So don't worry about people hearing you repeat yourself. It's all about banging the drum for your particular arts organisation. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, we have all our structure in place, but we don't have reach yet. But that's the point of why we're trying to do this. But thank you very much.
Go on, Tom.
If you check out the case studies page, which we linked to earlier on, there are awards which we've awarded to, particularly to small charities. We have a small charity award for the Christmas Challenge. So I would highlight those case studies to read, because often they are from organizations which have 1 or 2 fundraisers and marketing team all rolled into one. So those will probably be the most relevant. And finally, I'm just linking to our YouTube channel in the chat. So we have all of our webinars from previous campaigns on there, and some of them may be really helpful in terms of thinking about network mapping and finding who's in your network that you can reach out to help promote your campaign and things like that. So yeah, check out those resources.
It's definitely worth a sort of, 20 minutes with a piece of paper, writing down all the people who might be in your network and you might be able to engage to help you. Might not take 20 minutes. Might not take 20 minutes, but you know what I mean. Yeah, actors who've been in your productions, directors you've worked with, people who've got social media accounts, beneficiaries, people you maybe have given some comp tickets to in the past, schools that you've done education workshops for. I mean, just sit and think as very broadly as you can about who's involved with your organisation. And that's advice for anyone participating, I would say.
Thank you, Samantha.
Thank you.
Cool. Any more? Well, I think we may have to wrap up here because I think we're out of questions. But yeah, as we said before, if you have any questions, just pop us an email and we'll be happy to get back to you. And if needed, we'll have happy to arrange a call with you to discuss anything. So please do reach out to us if you have any questions at all. Thank you, Anna, for joining us today.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. And yeah, thank you all for attending today and hope you all have a good weekend. And yeah, we look forward to supporting you over the coming weeks and, well, next month or so.
Super. Thank you very much. Good luck, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.